Out on Twitter just today at time of recording, Thor Love and Thunder shares continuity with this. What the happened?
You've forgotten everything I taught you. But a warrior's patience.
While you wait and be patient, the Nine Realms laugh at us.
And they needed a new take and they needed a new direction, and I think this is the right direction to go.
This Organized Chaos video is brought to you by Gems Art Studio. This video is also brought to you by viewers like you. Thank you. Hello again. Before I started recording this, I thought I would go ahead and put together all the requests you guys have given me, because you guys have given me a whole lot, and I realize I have quite a backlog, so I have to say thank you guys. And here's the deal. I can't always do requests because there's stuff that will come up. So what I'm going to do when I record, because I usually do 2 at a time when I record, you probably notice with my shirts, I'll have 2 videos in a row or close to each other that I wear the same shirt. Those are almost certainly record back to back. Don't get discouraged if I'm not getting to your request quickly. I will work through them, I assure you, and I thank you so much for the request. And even though I have a backlog, please add more. I love that you guys are engaging. This is fantastic. But yeah, I want to look at some good stuff and some cringe stuff. And today this is definitely a request video, but it's also one I was planning on doing, so it's kind of a combo. So it's a twofer. This is a request from Red Yoshi. Hey, Mr. Organized Chaos, Nerdrotic made a new Love and Thunder review. Want to make another video on this? Yeah, I did. I covered his coverage of the trailer like a month or so ago. And now I'm getting to this. I meant to do this earlier, but now this movie's been out for like 2 weeks. So it's a little late. I've been busy with other stuff, video projects, honestly. The mission statement video that I just did last, that took a little bit out of me. But now I'm ready to do some more requests. Now, with Nerdrotic is interesting because, as I said, I was kind of planning this because there's kind of a little history I've been learning about Nerdrotic throughout this time. Number one, he has literally done 3 Lord of the Rings videos. Like, here's the one I covered. Like, that's the last video I've covered by him. And since then, he's done 1, 2, 3 more fucking Lord of the Rings videos. Yes, Rings of Power does not look great. But we don't have a whole lot new to go on it. It's like he just picking at just every fucking thing. It's like, oh my god, dude, find something else. But listen, we're not going to look at that right now. We're going to do a side path because I want to talk about something important. We are going to go back in time, and we are going to look at Nerdrotic's and his review of Thor Ragnarok.
Welcome back to the Nerdrotic podcast. My name is Gary Beekler. I am live in San Francisco, California, and I come to you from nerdrotic.com and down in...
When's the last time he actually did a video where he introduced himself? I guess I don't introduce myself that often, but you can definitely see this is different.
San Diego, we have the Ayatollah of Ragnarok and Rolla, Dennis Bethalkis. What is up, man?
I'm doing better than you are, obviously, at this point, since sick boy.
Yeah, a little under the weather. Had to cancel pretty much every plan I made for this little vacation I'm on. So, rock on. So, we both saw Thor Ragnarok yesterday.
Yes, we did.
And, yeah, there's a gazillion reviews on. And I'm not going to say ours is going to be any different than anybody else's, other than I think we both liked it. Did you like it?
Yeah, I actually think it was the best comic book movie to date.
I would agree with you. I would absolutely agree with you. And there is criticism out there. A lot of it is superhero fatigue with the people who cover this stuff. I don't know if it's generally in the general population, but what I noticed in my comic store a lot is guys and gals would start to get critical of comic books when it was the reader who was actually getting tired of them, and they would just assume that it's the rest of the readers who are, you know what I mean? It's like when an individual gets burned down on them, I could tell. And it was like the guys who would subscribe to like pretty much every title, you know, and they come in and they drop horrendous amounts of money every week. And they wouldn't pace themselves. And yes, the stories get repetitive. These are stories that are 50 years old. Some are 100 years old, 75 years old, because due to Greek mythology, thousands of years old.
Yep.
And it's a different take on them. And we are very deep into the MCU now. It's 10 years old, and they needed a new take and they needed a new direction. And I think this is the right direction to go. I mean, it's the answer to comics has always been, let's go darker. Going darker is the adult thing to do. Now, we are fans of dark, edgy stuff. That's pretty much entirely what we cover. So I'm not pissing on that at all. I freaking love it. But with superheroes, I just don't think it's great. I mean, it's good to visit that, but I think it's just we visited it way too long. God, I was saying this in 2008 when I owned the store. I was like, I wish they would just go back to fun. You know what I mean? Yeah. And this is exactly what they did. I mean, and actually a lot of people have been asking for this.
I have to admit, I actually, at the end of this movie, it was the first movie in a long time. I kind of just wanted to go back and watch it again right after seeing it. So, which is kind of rare for a movie nowadays.
Yeah, I agree. This is the first Marvel movie in quite some time where I wanted to run back and watch it again. If I wasn't sick, I would have. This movie was, I mean, a lot of people were calling it a comedy. I don't think it was a comedy. I like how you said it was like a buddy film. It was a comedy in the sense that maybe 48 Hours was the comedy, or Beverly Hills Cop was a comedy.
Dramedy.
A dramedy, yeah. An actionomedy or whatever.
All right, but I think you've got the impression now. He has changed his tune drastically on this movie. I'm certain if you ask him now about Thor Ragnarok, he'll tell you it's the worst thing ever. Now, when was this video? This video was November 17th, 2017. Now, 1 month later, month and a half later, he makes this video. Nerdrotic channel hits 1,000 subscribers. Thank you. Now, here's an interesting fact that I want to juxtapose that with. Do you know how many subscribers Organized Chaos had when he put this video out? 8,500. So what changed? Did his content just become just way better than mine? At that time, I wasn't even doing Marvel vs. DC. I hadn't even hit my real peak. At that time, I was still just doing the top 5 reasons it sucks or does it. Which, it got me started. It's not a series I was ever thrilled with, but it got me started doing this, and it gave me practice. But let's see what the difference between our two channels is. Now, how many Brie Larson videos do you wonder if he has? Let's see. Brie Larson. Well, he put Brie Larson on the thumbnail for his Avengers Endgame video. Avengers Endgame, the woke is on you. Too much male screen time. Captain Marvel's Brie Larson suffers for our sins. Captain Marvel fan goes after my wife. Well, actually, that sounds shitty, but MC Brie Larson Marvel diversity has to move faster. Captain Marvel, Brie Larson, Netflix target fans on Twitter. Disney Star Wars failure is complete. Kevin Feige and Brie Larson won't save the franchise. Captain Marvel's fake hair in Endgame is everything wrong with the MCU. Are you talking about the fake hair when she was in space? Yeah, that makes sense to fake. That's what that shot looks like. Marvel is doomed. Captain Marvel erased. Captain Marvel's MCU. Access Media Protectors called out YouTubers again. Captain Marvel creator thought Wonder Woman was better. Scrolls were mushy. Captain Marvel actress to replace 007. It's not too bad. Captain Marvel Access Media versus fans and YouTubers. It's not on Captain Marvel. Captain Marvel's director's clueless. Captain Marvel Rotten Tomatoes silences customers. Captain Marvel review. And this actually looks like one of the older ones. This looks like a genuine review. Probably if I clicked on this, I'd get something more like Thor Ragnarok. Something like him doing a Captain Marvel video like that Thor Ragnarok video, where it's more nuanced and you get more of a genuine feeling, I would appreciate. But most of this is just clear Brie Larson bashing garbage that he's pushing to push up his community count. And I just thought that was interesting. And now you all know the most likely reason why he's become big. But yes, we're going to get into it. His Thor Love and Thunder review. Blunder. Female Thor is a bore. Thor Love and Thunder is a disaster. Now, if you haven't seen the podcast, which you should, link in the description, I do my thoughts of Thor Love and Thunder. For Bobby and I discuss it there. It is a movie I overall enjoyed. I thought it had more good elements than bad elements. It definitely has issues, though. If you want to know what those issues are, check out the podcast. I discuss it there. You'll probably get more as I go over Nerdrotic's take on it. Because I'm sure his take is just going to be, it's the worst thing ever, and women strong, bad. Because that seems to be his MO anymore. And here's the deal. I think we saw in that Thor Ragnarok review, that's not who he is. This is just his grift. He figured out a grift on how I can just do quicker videos where I just bash on the movie incessantly and point out woke elements. That's all this is. I don't think this is the real Gary Butchar. I don't remember his name. I don't think it's the real Nerdrotic. I think this is an act he puts on for the views.
Nerdrotic.com.
Female Thor has arrived, and the big question is, was it the bait and switch that we anticipated? The answer is kind of. Thor Dumb and Dumber does focus on Thor, just not one that you'll recognize. That's where the real bait and switch is. This film is the gayest Marvel film yet, according to Natalie Portman.
Is it safe to say that this is the gayest movie ever made in the MCU?
I love that reading of it. Yes.
Do we care? Okay, so assuming this is the gayest movie in the MCU, which, I mean, Eternals actually had a gay kiss. That being said, it also has a heterosexual sex scene, so maybe those cancel out. That being said, even if this is the gayest movie in the Marvel Universe, it is not that gay. Not remotely. The main focal relationship is between a man and a woman. Essentially, you just have two characters. One is briefly referred to as liking the same sex, and the other one we have a quick shot of them with someone of the same sex. That is it. It is nothing.
And it's a film made by a 7-year-old, according to Chris Hemsworth. Now, all film and television require varying degrees of suspension of disbelief. It's a lot easier with dramas. That's why you see a lot more of them. They're cheaper to make, and quite frankly, that's why I find most of them boring and vapid. If I want drama, I'll just remember something from my life. That's why I gravitate towards superhero films, fantasy, science fiction. I want to be...
And that's why I shit over all of them. Oh, wait, no, I just shit all over them for money.
Taken away. Now, particularly with those genres, you need to multiply that suspension of disbelief by about 100 to 1,000, and it works, like with Daredevil, or the Captain America trilogy, or Spider-Man 2, or Superman the movie, Superman 2 the Donner Cut, The Crow. You had that in the beginning phases of the Marvel Cinematic Universe, particularly prior to Disney taking over. Unfortunately, we are firmly planted in
prior to Disney taking over, I believe Thor and Captain America were released under the Disney... No. Avengers was the first one released under the Disney banner. That being said, they probably didn't have a lot to do with production of it. Probably production... Iron Man 3 was a year later, so they were probably heavily involved with Iron Man 3. Whatever Disney heavily involved is. To my understanding, Marvel is mostly under the guise of Kevin Feige. That being said, Disney does seem to be sneaking in more and more as years go by.
Disney, Marvel's MCU phase bore. Now, a lot...
Oh, MCU. What about the male CU in phase 1 through 3, where it's all white guys? How come it took freaking... what, like 15 movies at least to get to a character starring a non-white guy? Like, all the movies star white guys from Iron Man until... It's Thor Ragnarok, right? Yeah, all of them between Iron Man to Thor Ragnarok star white guys, and then we finally get Black Panther, and then a year later we get Captain Marvel.
A lot of people out there, including yours truly, have argued that the MCU Phase 4 is directionless, but I have to say, I think they've set out and done exactly what they wanted to do. Vandalize all the previous characters so they can bring in the all-new, all-different Marvel, and you're all going to love them.
Is that what this movie did? Is that going to be your argument? Because if that's what you think this movie did, tell me you didn't watch this movie without telling me you didn't watch this movie. If that's what you think this did.
Because everything's a mantle, right? Right? No. I guess the best non-spoiler description for Thor Love and Thunder would be what I put up on Twitter. The Disney Marvel content was an absolute product.
Oh, God. His Twitter is obnoxious. Don't look at it if you value your sanity.
Can't wait for next Disney Marvel product. So the question is, does Thor Love and Blunder push the Thor character forward while introducing us to new and interesting characters? No, it does the opposite. It deconstructs Thor, deconstructs the Marvel Cinematic Universe, the far superior.
I would say it does too much comedy with Thor in the beginning, but after that, it does all right. It does fairly well. A lot of what this movie is about relationships, and we see him come to grips with his relationship with Jane and what happened in the past and what possible future they may have, and they come to grips with that.
One, the one that was put together by Paramount and not Disney. And of course,
well, Paramount was the distributor. It was Marvel Studios still.
Of course, it introduces us to more contrived, vapid, derivative characters like female.
So wait, is he saying Disney evil but Paramount good? Paramount's evil. I mean, Disney is bigger, so more evil, but Paramount's still evil, dude.
Thor and Kang Valkyrie. I guess that's a really long-winded way of saying that Thor and the MCU has become a parody of itself, and that's all thanks to one guy, Kevin Feige. When the film opens, we meet and...
Yes, and without Kevin Feige, we won't have any MCU. So why the bashing all of a sudden?
Antagonist in product. Gore the God Butcher, who was obviously much better and much better looking in the comics, and we conveniently get his entire backstory and motivation in an opening prologue. That's right, the god Rapu tells Gore and the audience everything he needs to know about the Necro Sword. It can kill gods. So then Gore kills a god, and again, spoilers, that's the only one he kills on screen the entire film. I guess the real bait and switch...
That is, I will give him credit, a valid argument. I thought Christian Bale, I thought did a great job. I do think Gore looks creepier in the comic books, but I think there is value in maybe just doing the makeup job with Christian Bale. Number one, the look in the comic books would look very Voldemort-y. So there is an argument to just have it be Christian Bale in makeup. Plus, you can get more of a performance from Christian Bale, which I'm sure is something Christian Bale would want. So yeah, I mean, I think there's arguments for that. That being said, yeah, I think there should have been more God killing in this movie.
Which was with the Guardians of the Galaxy, who are barely in it and really only exist to send Thor on his way. So,
well, yeah, they're just fun cameos like Doctor Strange in the beginning of Ragnarok, which you said you loved, which I'm sure you hate now.
Our product protagonist, Thor, is finding himself for the 8th or 9th time in the MCU series, and he is playing a completely different character from even Ragnarok, a bigger idiot. As my good friend Mahler pointed
out, it's fairly similar to what he played in Ragnarok. He's super powerful, he kicks a lot of butt, but he's kind of reached a point where he's kind of casual about it.
Out on Twitter just today at time of recording, Thor Love and Thunder shares continuity with this. What the f*** happened?
You've forgotten everything I taught you about a warrior's patience.
While you wait and be patient, the Nine Realms laugh at us. The old ways are done. You'd stand giving speeches while Asgard falls.
You are a vain, greedy, cruel boy!
And you are an old man and a fool!
Hello, made of rocks.
Almost like it's a different interpretation of the character. And as we saw with Dark World, this interpretation was running out of ideas very quickly, so they need to reinvigorate it. So they did Ragnarok, and Ragnarok was the best Thor movie to date.
and they needed a new take and they needed a new direction. And I think this is the right direction to go.
That is how you make movies.
That's a good question, Mahler. Unfortunately, I don't have the time to get into the massive power shift that happened right after the co-opting of the Me Too Time's Up movement in conjunction with the
Me Too Time's Up movement? What the fuck does that have to do with fucking MCU and Thor movies? Jesus Christ, dude.
Election of Donald Trump, which led Hollywood to completely...
Donald Trump? Yeah, I'm the one that brings politics into this. What the fuck is this? Yes, the MCU was drastically affected by the election of Donald Trump. What the fuck?
Lose its mind, followed immediately by certain fortifications due to a certain crisis leading to a certain summer of love, which exacerbated the hysteria, leading directly to turning all forms of entertainment into social engineering platforms for content and influence. Back to female Thor, boring and dumb. Now, I'm not going to break down this entire film because it was boring.
I like how he just, like, says all that shit. But, you know, what's your source? Like, a lot of these movies that we're getting out now were actually done, or actually we're getting to the point where we're getting to movies that were mostly done before the pandemic, or largely shot before the pandemic. We might be getting a couple movies that were shot during 2021. But I love how you're just saying, oh, it's done with, like, some sort of message and some shit, and your source is... trust me, bro.
Boring and dumb. It was pretty well cast. Unfortunately, they were wasted standing in front of a volume green screen spackled in Technicolor splooge. Within the first few...
a valid argument can be made. The effects in Love and Thunder were very spotty.
Minutes, they make an absolute mockery out of everything that's happened in previous Thor films, including the deaths of Frigga, Odin, Heimdall, the Warriors 3, who are referred to as that guy, and Loki's sacrifice in Infinity War.
Not really. Korg Korg is kind of a humorous character, and he's telling the story of Thor, and he brings up all the death that Thor has gone through. The only one, like, you could call it humorous because Korg is a humorous character, but the only one that's really treated really humorously would be Loki, and that's because he's died like 50 fucking times.
Coincidentally enough, it was Loki's TV show that also made a mockery of the MCU, everything being Kang's will, and of course, the Infinity Stones being paperweights, not to be outdone. There's an Infinity Gauntlet ice cream shop. You know that little event where half the people in the universe disappeared for 5 years and returned to a Disney Marvel dystopia? And yes, I'm gonna go there. That would be like having a Holocaust ice cream shop. That's how stupid this idea is. But that's Thor stuffing things in a nutshell. And don't fret.
I didn't notice that, but that does seem familiar. Yeah, I guess that would be a little weird.
I don't even mention the blip. The plot goes a little something like this. Gore the God...
Jesus Christ, how much do you want him to mention the blip? I feel like the blip has been brought up plenty of times, and it doesn't play into this story specifically, so why bring it up?
Butcher wants to kill gods because of the loss of his daughter, and he has the Necro Sword. Now, how did he get it? Well, he just ran across it. Did the sword corrupt him? Maybe not so sure. Large portions of this film, and I'm talking about a half an hour, are dedicated to just getting us back up to speed, getting Thor back in shape, reintroducing us to Jane Foster, who hasn't been in anything since Thor Dark World, and unfortunately, Jane Foster has cancer.
What he calls getting up to speed, I call Act 1, because... that's what Act 1 is for a movie. You get introduced to the characters in the movie and what they're going through. It sets up the story for Act 2 and eventually Act 3. What he's calling, a half hour dedicated to this, yeah, it's called setting up your fucking movie, dude.
Dealing with it? Pretty good. Of course, this film features King Valkyrie, who is as bored with ruling Asgard as we are with her character. Oh, and I almost forgot.
I like Valkyrie. I know that you used to like her, but now, or probably used to like her, but now you dislike her because it's cool to hate on Disney Marvel. But yeah, I thought Tessa Thompson's Valkyrie's a fun character.
Like most of this movie, Korg, who's just there to be Taika Waititi. So they all team up with Thor to get Gore, who is
Taika Waititi's fun.
Kidnapped what appears to be a bunch of fatherless children from Asgard. I mean, this is a Disney Marvel product, and all male leads need to be balanced out by a minimum of 2 women. The gang goes to omnipotent.
Do you care? Do you care? Why do you care about the number of women? Like, you get concerned about the number of women in a movie. Why do you care? If they're there naturally, who cares? And also, like, the main group traveling, I'm sure you're going to ignore this. You're going to say the main group traveling is Valkyrie, Thor, and Jane, and you're going to ignore Korg. So it's actually 2 and 2, in case you're wondering.
City, an abode of the gods, to raise an army to free the fatherless children of Asgard. Zeus, who is played like a stereotypical Greek deli owner by Russell Crowe, and
deli owner? He's a god who's a little bit burnt out and doesn't really want to do anything but have orgies. He is a god who is pretty fucking useless, which is actually part of the story. How these gods are pretty useless. Yes, Thor is pretty awesome, but a lot of these gods are pretty fucking worthless. And that's part of the point of the story. That's one of the things they explore. How lots of gods don't give a shit.
Ends up being, and this should surprise no one, a complete douchebag and turns him down. Because Zeus is such a predictable Disney Marvel male douchebag, King Valkyrie conveniently...
Did it occur to you that it was for the story that he would be a douchebag? Like, the story would be a lot less interesting if they go there and Zeus is like, oh, here's everything you need, party on, dude.
At least susses out that they don't really need an army, they just need his fake-ass looking lightning bolt. After a sloppy CGI fight, Thor then kills Zeus and steals his fake-ass looking lightning bolt, and they are whisked away by the screaming goats. A joke that might have been funny once, but not 3 or 4 times.
So the screaming goats are weird. So, like, when they were first introduced, I was like, these things are going to drive me nuts. But I feel like he used them perfectly, where at first they're annoying, and then you take, like, this huge break from them, and then towards the end of the second act, we start getting a little bit more of them, and they're starting to give you a chuckle. And pretty much after that, I was kind of cool with them. They were kind of awesome. If you're wondering, there are these goats that essentially scream all the time, but their screams sound really human. It really doesn't sound right at all. And like I said, at first it's annoying, but then you take a long enough break, and then when you return to them, it's like, that's kind of fucking hilarious.
Personally, I'm against any social media platform banning anyone for dead naming, but I would be for them banning people for dead memeing. Then Thor and his Disney Marvel obligatory female backup go off to fight Gore and free the fatherless Asgard.
Obligatory? You do know Mighty Thor has a storyline in the comic books, right? And we can go into the issues with how they tell that story in the movie, but I'm thinking, for being the huge comic book fan you claim you are, you haven't actually read that comic book, so you don't actually know, do ya?
Guardian children. In the sloppy CGI fight, Korg was taken out and reduced to only a face, which I'm sure was a move that had nothing to do with effects budgets.
Okay.
No, I actually did wonder about that, because that did look weird. Korg in this movie, I think Korg looks better in Ragnarok than he does in this movie. It's weird. Like, this is almost certainly a shot taken from, like, a cam leak. Somebody just recording it off the screen in the theater. That being said, that's a fairly accurate representation of what he looks like. The effects in this movie were not great.
Does that look real? In that particular shot, no, actually. It doesn't really, right? When you look close.
You need to be more blue.
Well,
you know.
No.
Shut the f*** up!
Now, there's a couple of big battles towards the end of female Thor subscribers and consumers, and Kang Valkyrie was taken out early. Coincidentally, the quote-unquote creatives took her out of this movie for the same reason the audience was glad she was taken out: lack of interest. Now, instead of having...
Well, no, it was bring the focus more to Thor and Jane, because they are definitely the main characters. It's primarily Thor, but we get a lot of Jane and her struggles with cancer. The original final battle was actually set up to just be Thor versus Gore, but as the movie progressed, Jane jumps in, which is something Thor very much did not want. It's one of the better parts of the movie, honestly. Jane's arc in this movie is fantastic.
Gore the God Butcher actually butcher gods like he does in the comic books. Here,
Yeah, I think Christian Bale does a really good job with the role. That being said, they did need to have him kill more gods. I would agree with that assessment.
He's just seeking out an omnipotent being named Eternity and simply wish all the gods dead. Yes, you heard me right. And all he needs is a key. And that key is Thor's Stormbreaker, which can summon its own Bifrost Bridge. That probably could have come in handy once or twice during the Infinity Saga, but that...
Yeah, but they didn't know about it. It's almost like comic books are wonky and invent it as they go along. Isn't that weird? Isn't that weird? I know you haven't read any comic books and don't know that, but yeah, they get wonky and invent new stuff as they go along.
That's not the only thing. When Thor eventually finds the children, he imbues them with the power of Thor.
Before he gets to it, I'm not a huge fan of this. It's like, wait, you could just infuse anybody with the power of Thor? That seems way too easy. Yeah, I'm not a huge fan of it. It also kind of feels like the Shazam thing, except that required a special staff that was broken once he infused the other people with it. This is, yeah, it's kind of wonky. I'm not a huge fan of it.
Well, that would have come in pretty damn handy during, well, the entire Infinity Saga. That's right, he temporarily imbues all...
Well, I would actually argue that there's a solid chance he couldn't do that during the Infinity Saga because Odin. That being said, he could still do it after Odin dies, so he could still do it during Infinity War and Endgame, which would have been super helpful then. Yeah, it's wonky. I agree with this. He will probably take this argument to someplace cringe as he normally does. That being said, I agree with this assessment. This is weird.
All the children with the powers of Thor. When did he get these powers? Has he had them all along? Did he get them when Odin died? Did he get them through Zeus's fake-ass lightning bolt because we did see it separate? We're never told specifically. I think the answer is he's had them for at least a while because he...
I will be blunt. There are elements that make me think that this movie was chopped to shit. I suspect there's probably deleted scenes that explore more ideas. Like, he's probably not going to get into it. But in this movie, we see that Thor enchants Mjolnir to help protect Jane, which is why she eventually becomes Mighty Thor, because Mjolnir senses that she needs help, and it comes back together to help her. Now, this brings into the question, is she actually worthy? Or is this just Thor's enchantment? And I feel like the natural arc that this movie sets up is we don't know until the end when she does absolutely prove she's worthy. She's absolutely worthy of the hammer at the end of this. It's absolutely proven. But they don't really establish that. Because I think a question of, hey, is she actually worthy, or is this just the enchantment? And then having it confirmed at the end that she is worthy. That would have been an interesting story to explore, but they don't. They just drop in that it's enchanted, and that's it. I think that's a missed opportunity, and I suspect there's a deleted scene that actually kind of explores this. And I think it's weird that it's cut, because, it would probably add like 5 minutes screen time, most. So it's a 2-hour, 5-minute movie instead of a 2-hour movie. I don't get cutting that, and I think it will have strengthened the movie.
Unintentionally imbues female Thor with his power with a passing statement. I suppose the debate can rage on in the comments section below, but ultimately, it doesn't matter. Oh no, I know it matters to actual fans who have read the...
So, there's a difference between him imbuing Mjolnir with, telling it to help Jane, and him passing the powers of Thor onto the children. Maybe the movie's trying to say it's the same thing, but it's not quite, because in the comic books, we kind of see Mjolnir kind of has a consciousness of its own. It kind of has a mind of its own. So when it took his enchantment, it was kind of an interesting thing, because the MCU hasn't really explored that aspect of it until then. That being said, he does not enchant the children with the power of Thor with Mjolnir. He has Stormbreaker during that.
The comic books, but it doesn't matter to the people who create these films, and I will have a definitive answer for you at the end of the video. Yes, that's a tease to make you watch it all the way to the end. That's right, female Thor swoops in and saves the children, saves...
Okay, what is your definitive answer? I'm betting you it's wrong because you usually are. Or it's cringe. It might be super cringe, but let's see.
Thor saves the day and makes the ultimate sacrifice. But that's okay because after
I don't remember him using so much pirated footage.
After this character has been gone for 8 years and then she came in and appropriated Thor's power, she was there to teach him the lesson he was meant to learn in this film. How to love. Which is almost, no, not almost, it's exactly like what happens at the end of Doctor Strange. Christine Palmer was missing for years. Then she shows up to teach Doctor Strange how to love.
I love you.
Teach him how to love. I really don't like the way he's phrasing either of those. One, in Doctor Strange, as we're looking at a clip right now, that was about him moving on. Because it's pretty much established in that movie, he always loved Christine. He just never came out and told her, and he couldn't tell that universe's Christine because she's getting married. That is not the right time for that. That being said, he encountered another Christine on another Earth, and he was able to tell that Christine his feelings. And that was a nice catharsis for him. Now, in Thor Love and Thunder, it's not really established that he doesn't know how to love. It's just he and Jane reconnect. They're like, we do want to get back together, but there's these major obstacles, primarily the fact that she's dying of cancer, which is a huge part of this movie. But they decide, even despite that, they still want to get back together. But of course, fate has different ideas, and he has a tragic loss, which is fairly common in comic books. I don't get the learning how to love. Characters having relationships that don't work is practically a fucking cliche in superhero stories, for crying out loud.
Paging Dr.
As far as the main characters are concerned, I guess I could say the best out of the worst was Christian Bale's Gore, who needed a lot more time because the performance was just wildly inconsistent, from tortured father to overacting villain.
I thought he balanced the two quite well, honestly, because the tortured father was just his origin story, and the implication was he's been Gore for a long time, and we see him later, and he's just crazy at that point.
To vengeful demon who looked like crystal meth Uncle Fester. Korg, like this film, is just an overused joke. Speaking of jokes, then there's Kang Valkyrie, a testament and a...
I really don't get why Kang Valkyrie, because she's black, and Kang is black in the MCU now? Why is it Kang Valkyrie? Am I missing something? Go ahead and add in the comments, and if you're a Nerdrotic fan, you'll probably be snarky about it, but go ahead and tell me, why is it Kang Valkyrie?
Monument to the MCU, the gold standard of tokenization and identity politics.
Oh, get fucked. Tessa Thompson does a good job. Get over it.
Whose only purpose in this film is to be Tessa Thompson and a king, because a king somehow is a higher rank than a queen.
Yes, traditionally a king is a higher rank than a queen. That's how the fucking rank works.
According to intersectional feminism, do you feel empowered?
According to every fucking monarchy in the fucking world, what the fuck are you talking about? The king always outranks the queen. That's how monarchies work. It's called... Jesus Christ.
Women. On the subject of female empowerment and female Thor, nothing says it more than giving women male hand-me-downs. I can't think of anything that would inspire little girls to better themselves than by telling them that nothing they really do matters and they need to appropriate an established male title. How did that work out for Doctor Who? To be fair, Natalie Portman tried to channel the Jane...
Okay? Is that what they're teaching? Because here's the deal. Lots of characters will pass on mantles forever. We had Barry Allen, Wally West as Flash. We have Kyle Rayner and Hal Jordan as Green Lantern. Also Jon Stewart as Green Lantern. there's lots of different mantles that get passed down in superhero stories, and right now all they're doing is saying, hey, we don't have enough female or minority characters, so maybe we should pass the mantles to people who fit roles or people who fit types that we haven't really been acknowledging for a while. It's mostly been white guys. Not always, but mostly been white guys. Why do you have an issue with that? Because that makes sense. What's the issue? As long as it's well written, and yeah, you can totally nitpick situations where it's poorly written, but that's an issue with the writing. If it's written well, I don't care. Do it. In fact, it's probably better if you do it and write it well.
Jane Foster, she played in the first Thor film, but it's been a long time, over a decade now. She wasn't as insufferable as, say, female Loki or Captain Marvel. Doesn't mean she was good.
This was actually, I thought, Natalie Portman's best performance in the MCU. And I don't even think that's close. She did a really good job in this one.
Wasn't MCU. She still got the big hero moment. She saved Thor and got a statue. Oh, and those are some CGI guns. You want my respect? Hit the gym.
You do know she was also playing a character dying of cancer, right?
Just like Chris Hemsworth did. And
oh, but yeah, Chris Hemsworth's also a fitness buff. Did you know that one? Like, they put a serious fat suit on him for Endgame because he was fucking ripped for that movie as well. That's just part of who he is. He loves going to a gym and working out.
And other actresses have done in worse movies. Jessica Biel looked great in the awful Blade Trinity, and
Natalie Portman looked good in this movie. What are you talking about?
Who could forget Linda Hamilton in the brilliant Terminator 2, just to name a couple? You can't have your girl card and equality. It's
She's also dying of cancer, bro.
One or the other. But as far as derivative and tokenized characters go, female...
Wait, you can't have your girl card and equality? What the fuck? So you can't be a girl... Ugh. What the fuck, man? You can't be a girl and have equality? What fucked up shit is that? Oh, yeah, no. But he's not sexist, guys, I'm sure. Jesus.
Female Thor takes the cake because she literally took a dude's name. And not just an established Marvel character, an established mythological character that's been around for thousands of years. And this is a problem that would have been easily solved from...
Well, here's actually one of the issues I have with the movie. She doesn't take his name throughout this movie at all until the very end, where she decides to name herself Mighty Thor, which is the way they usually call her to simplify her in the comic book. She's Mighty Thor, he's Thor Odin's son. But they never, give her that name. It's just Thor and Jane throughout most of the movie. And it would have been nice to maybe, have a moment where Thor, gives her the name and she decides to use it. Just something like that, because she just throws it in at the end, and it feels very kind of tacked on, like they didn't know what to do with the name, so it just kind of tacked on. The story here is very different from the comic book, so it's tougher, because in the comic book, Thor actually became unworthy and couldn't wield Mjolnir, and Jane was able to wield it at that point. Thor is impressed by her and says, you can carry the name Thor, you carry on the name of Thor. And she, that's a great honor to her. And she carries on the name of Thor because she thinks the name of Thor is important. While Thor Odin's son finds himself, she will carry on being Thor. But that's not what happens here, because Thor is active while she's active. And overall, the story is fine, but they don't really have a reason for her to go by the name Mighty Thor anymore. Or in that she's using the power of Thor. And they need to think of a way to weave it in there, because she just drops in the name Mighty Thor at the end, and it's you need to set that up.
From the get-go, give her slightly different powers and a different name. Now, why didn't they?
Give her slightly different powers and a different name. Oh, why? She had Mjolnir. She had the powers of Thor. That's what the enchantment does. If they be worthy, they have the powers of Thor, which is what she had.
do that. Was the massive multi-billion-dollar corporation Disney motivated by profits, screwing over the original creators or their estates so they can maintain the copyright? Or was it agenda? Yes.
Okay. So they always love to go to this creators' rights thing. Ethan loves to go this way. Like I brought up to Ethan Van Sciver. He said he's anti-SJW. And I said, okay, do you have an issue with a character like Miles Morales? And he was like, yes. And I said, what? And he said, oh, well, Miles Morales is a way to get around paying the creators' families of Spider-Man for the rights to use the character. Now, I could also tack on that Stan Lee, when he was writing for Marvel, gave all those characters to Marvel. So they just have the rights. There might be some residuals that go to creators, but for the most part, the Marvel characters are owned by Marvel outright. I don't know the legal differences. And I said, okay, so you're fighting for creators' rights. And his answer was, no, I'm not fighting for creators' rights. I'm fighting to be anti-SJW. And that's all. This creators' rights argument is bullshit. He doesn't care. I probably care more about the creators' rights issue than these guys do. They just throw it out as a tag word. All they're caring about being anti-woke and anti-SJW.
This is something that even gets brought up in the film. Gore calls her Lady Thor, and she corrects him and tells him that she is the Mighty Thor when she's actually
female Thor.
And you would think that's the very definition of the MCU, but there...
Yeah, it's not particularly well set up. I mean, I get what they're doing, because it's like Lady Thor. No, I'm not Lady Thor, I'm Mighty Thor. Trying to say the gender doesn't matter. She's Thor. But she's not really Thor, because there is another Thor there. Listen, the comic book is clear, because Thor didn't have his hammer at that time, so he wasn't quite 100% Thor yet, so it's a bit clearer there. He passes on the mantle of Thor to her, so it makes more sense when somebody calls her Lady Thor to her to be like, no, I'm just Thor. Here, the movie doesn't set that up properly.
There is a couple of more ingredients required to help build up these modern female characters in the eyes of Disney Marvel. The complete and total degradation, humiliation, demoralization of the established male character. And they don't really miss an opportunity to do that in Thor, misandry, and intersectionalism. Thor is reduced to a bumbling idiot, more in line from Kevin from Ghostbusters.
He's not an idiot. He is very comedic, especially at the beginning. Too much so, in my opinion. That being said, it's not that he is dumb. It's that he's just super powerful, and he takes things fairly casually because he's super fucking powerful, and there's not a whole lot that's an actual obstacle to him.
2016. Thor, Disney, and Groomers has a lot of other problems as well.
Oh god, yes. Disney is a groomer just because they won't back the Don't Say Gay bill, so now we call them groomers all the time, which he does all the time on fucking Twitter. Can we talk about the fucking movie? Please.
Including the humor, which everyone has talked about, and they're not underselling it. The product, which is consistent with D+, and all the phase bore, is a series of and-thens, topped off by humor that doesn't land, killing the verisimilitude. With a film like this, there needs to be...
I would actually argue most of the humor is fairly good. Just in the beginning, there's too much of it focused on Thor. That's my biggest gripe with the humor. Most of it I actually enjoy quite a bit, but in the beginning there's a bit too much, and it kind of... There's that residual overdone of humor at the beginning that carries on through the rest of the movie. Even though the rest of the movie, it's not really overdone.
To be a balance between the humor and the action. One of the best examples is from the MCU, and unfortunately it's the film that led to a lot of this. Guardians of the Galaxy. Another thing that's not being undersold is the tonal shifts will give you whiplash. And as many have said, the sets look cheap, the special effects look colorfully bland, and this movie...
Well, actually, yeah, the sets look cheap. I don't think there's a lot of sets in this movie, and that's an issue. This is blue screen.
Is just a mess, and the ending was just bad. Eternity, a character from the comics that I would have loved to have seen, was just a stationary effect. Female Thor dies, then Gore cries, then Gore dies, then...
Well, I imagine we're gonna get more Eternity. We'll have to see how that evolves. It was a quick little cameo. Overall, I like the ending of this movie. I thought the ending was fantastic. Like I said, I don't like the kids becoming Thor, but overall the ending was good. I like what they do with it. I like the idea of Gore going there to kill all gods, and instead he wishes for his daughter back. And that's you get a little bit more humanity from him, and that's sweet.
And Thor gets Gore's daughter. Does anyone in the MCU have sons anymore? Well, I guess Heimdall had a son, Axel, in this film. Unfortunately, he's dead and not around. What kind of message does that send? Oh, and by the way,
Oh my god, a comic book character whose parents are dead. What are the fucking odds? That never happens in comic books, right?
That's why the film is called Love and Thunder. No, not Heimdall being yet another Hollywood absentee father. Thor being...
He's dead. He's not an absentee father. He's fucking dead. Oh my god. Do you have to turn everything into a cringe political angle? Fuck's sake, dude.
The father to Gore's daughter. But wasn't that Guns N' Roses music cool? Sure, but I can listen to complete songs in places like the gym. I completely understand.
Actually, you see, I actually thought Guns N' Roses was a bit overdone. And I think maybe if they focused on one album and made the album pertinent to the story, I would have forgiven it more. But it's pretty much just Guns N' Roses, their 4 most popular songs played a couple times. It's a bit much.
And why a lot of women are going to like this.
Flick too hard, damn it!
Yes! Yes!
But it ain't going to be for Kang, Valkyrie, and female Thor. Thor diminishing...
Well, it might be, but they probably don't object to Chris Hemsworth either. You know, it's possible to like things outside of sexual preference. Did you know that? Did you know that I enjoyed the character of Jane Foster in this, and it has nothing to do with the fact that she's attractive? I just thought she was an interesting character. Isn't that crazy?
And Returns isn't the worst of Marvel Phase 4. If we were going to do a top 5 of, say, the Disney Marvel MCU Phase 4, I would say that Thor would top the list at being the best of the worst, followed by Shang-Chi and the Legend of the Ten Bracelets at the second best of the worst. Black Widow would be the third best of the worst. The fourth best of the worst would be Doctor Strange Mom, and the absolute worst would be the Eternals. Overall, Thor is just another character sacrificed on Disney's altar of agenda due
Sacrifice on Disney's altar of agenda. You mean like how he's the main character at the beginning of this movie and the main character at the end of this movie, and how we even get a title card saying he's gonna be back?
To not just lack of respect for the source material, outright disdain for the source material. And what proof do I...
You haven't even read the comic books, have you? Disdain for the source material? This is so much different from your Thor Ragnarok video where you're talking about, oh, you know, sometimes in the comic books you gotta change things up, just like these movies do. They change things up.
I have of this? Well, I teased this earlier in the video. It comes from Taika Waititi himself, who said, "I will ruin your mythos in a minute, baby."
Not a great plan.
Nerdrotic.com.
Wait, was that his big thing? Just a fucking tweet from Taika Waititi? Who gives a shit? Yeah. Nerdrotic. Why actually give a movie a serious review when you can just be cringy through the whole goddamn thing? What the... How many political angles you gotta bring up in the video? Why can't you just fucking review a movie? Everything's bad in it, isn't it awful? Jesus. Not a single element of that came off as honest at all. That was just awful. Ugh. I just don't have the words. Awful.
They think order and chaos are somehow opposites and try to control what won't be.
I used to fuck guys like you in prison.
Okay, but there's a couple guys out there who I was very surprised didn't like it. Like Mundane Matt. Mundane Matt came away, and that's his, who generally likes everything. Mundane Matt pretty much likes everything. I mean, he likes Superman versus Batman. So he's a big YouTuber, and seems like a good guy. I don't know him or anything like that. And everybody's entitled to their opinion, so it's not a criticism of him. I'm just surprised. Yeah, and I get everything Marvel MCU. And superhero.